In this last video, a couple of nurses are working the night shift at a hospital in Dallas, Texas, when things get very strange. This video was taken on a certain floor of this hospital where many patients claim to have seen unexplainable things. On this particular night, two nurses are cleaning up a medical station when this is captured.
Did you hear her?
Yes.
You hear her?
We slepen zo, we woke him up. We woke him up.
It's very faint, but if you raise the volume, you'll hear what sounds like a little girl humming or even giggling.
You hear her?
It's easy to miss the first time, but upon hearing it, you won't miss it again. You'll notice this after watching the following video, in which another nurse at the same hospital captures this.
That was you.
No, I swear to God. Was that something? Come on.
Once again, the same humming sound is heard. Keep in mind that no one was occupying these rooms during this time, ruling out the possibility of this having been a patient, or at least a physical one, because apparently, nurses believe that the humming sound is being made by the spirit of a little girl who was once a patient at this hospital but passed away. Whether or not that's the case remains uncertain, but regardless, this video is still a mystery as no one at the hospital knows who's making these humming noises. Like most videos, there has yet to be a definitive explanation for what happened.
10 cryptids that might just be out there. First, the Yeti, said to dwell in the Himalayas. Next, the Loch Ness Monster, reportedly lurking in Scotland's Loch Ness. The Jersey Devil, a creature haunting New Jersey's Pine Barrens. Bigfoot, a hairy figure walking upright through the North American wilderness. The Chupacabra, a vampire-like creature seen in Latin America. Mothman, a winged, red-eyed entity reported in West Virginia. El Chupacabra of Puerto Rico, a hopping alien-like being. The Thunderbird, a giant bird in Native American folklore. Mokele Mbembe, a creature in Central Africa, often compared to a dinosaur. Finally, the Kraken, a colossal sea monster from Scandinavian folklore, big enough to engulf ships.
SCP-542, known as Herr Chirurg or Surgeon, claims to have once been a typical human of German descent. He speaks multiple languages, possesses a high IQ of around 150, and appears to have lived through various eras. Despite his gruesome appearance resembling Frankenstein's monster, he's surprisingly pleasant and enjoys engaging conversations and chess. However, when his body deteriorates, he becomes a different, darker personality and stalks people from a distance. SCP-542's bizarre body is a patchwork of different tissues and organs, often replaced through self-surgeries, even adding extra brain matter. He defies medical norms, accepting various blood types and multiple organs without rejection. His uncanny awareness extends to his own body and others nearby, enabling him to detect decay and health issues. Despite his mysterious abilities, his motivations remain enigmatic.
How Galapagos won the war against goats. It started in 1959, when 3 goats were released into the wild. The threesome goats multiplied rapidly, and by 1997, the goat population reached 100,000. They ravaged the island's vegetation, leaving the Galapagos tortoise with nothing to eat. To stop this problem, Project Isabella was launched, with objective of eradicating all goats in the island. They used helicopters and foot soldiers to shoot goats. However, as more goats they kill, the harder it is to find the rest. And so they kidnap goats and turn them into Judas goats. These goats were sterilized and chemically induced, so they're perpetually in heat. Fitted with GPS, the horny Judas goats were released to find the remaining goats, and the helicopters would follow them shooting other goats. But not the Judas goat. They repeat this process, eventually wiping all the goats in the island, except, of course, for the Judas goat. In service of betraying their own kind, the Judas goats were allowed to live their infertile life until they die. I created hundreds of movies to spread satanic propaganda to children. I am Walt Disney. Watch until the end, as I will reveal something insane. In 1920, I produced my first movie, and as I made more and more movies, things weren't going too well. One day, while I was in a bar in California, someone approached me and explained that he could help me make my films extremely famous if I signed a deal with the devil and spread satanic beliefs in my movies. I quickly accepted, as I would have done anything to finally have the recognition I thought I really deserved. From that day, I depicted satanic symbols such as the devil horn or demonic rituals in all of my movies. But this isn't the craziest part. In 1966, I got extremely sick, and as I was going to pass away, my body was frozen. But in early 2012, a rumor spread about my body being conserved. So Disney released a movie called Frozen. So when someone would look up Disney Frozen online, they would only find the movie. Subscribe and send to a friend for part 2 with more details. Now you know.
This monster is one of the saddest monster stories I have ever heard. Medusa had beautiful long hair, and everybody loved her, including the gods. So sadly, the god Neptune sexually assaulted her in the temple of the goddess Athena. When Athena found out what happened, she didn't punish Neptune, but instead Medusa, since she was an easier target. Medusa fled, but not before her hair became dozens of snakes, and anyone she stared at became stone. Athena, still not satisfied, sent a warrior to kill her, so the coward crept up behind her while she slept and chopped off her head. He would use the head in battle until one day he used it against a blind man. Thinking it didn't work anymore, he stared directly at the head, and like poetic justice, he became stone, and Medusa got the last laugh.
A woman driving home pulls over due to her car playing up. She had contacted her father beforehand, who told her to stop off here because he knows the location. He had told her he would flash his headlights, so she knows it is him. But watch what happens.
And that is not my dad. This car has turned around 3 times to look at my car.
Never do this. This guy was incredibly lucky. His name is Dengo, and he was trying to extract venom from one of the most venomous and dangerous snakes in the world. Moreover, a few drops were projected into the air. When handling such things, you must be extremely careful because, for example, the venom of the Gaboon viper can stop your heart in less than a second. So, it's safe to say that this man narrowly escaped the worst. But wait, you haven't seen anything yet. Before we continue, don't forget that I can only protect my subscribers who have shared, commented on the video, and watched it until the end. Did you know that by clicking on share and then on calculator, you can see how many hours you've spent on TikTok? It's unbelievable to think what might have happened if the guy hadn't noticed that a snake was entering his shoe. It's too much for me. I'll leave you with a video of a weasel fighting a giant cobra. Who do you think will win?
That's why you should always lock your door when you sleep in a hotel. This man was in the bathroom when someone tried to get into his hotel room by unlocking the door. Look what happened next.
On March 6 of 2023, a Reddit user had taken a photo of his kitchen late at night. The Reddit user claims that over the last couple of years, he's been hearing mysterious noises coming from his apartment. For the longest time, he's been trying to figure out the source of these noises. But then one night, while being in his living room, he takes a photo of his kitchen and captures this. It was only after enhancing the photo that he was able to see what looks to be a tall figure standing in his kitchen. He believes that whoever this is the person responsible for the strange noises he would hear at night. While the figure itself is pretty creepy, viewers believe that the Reddit user had actually caught something paranormal. Whatever this is appears to have no eyes and seems to be very tall when comparing it to the fridge on the side. But it only gets creepier because only a few days later, the Reddit user had posted a video of another strange occurrence. He left his camera recording overnight where the figure was spotted and captured this. If you look closely, you can see what looks to be a figure moving in the dark, but it's only after brightening the footage that the video becomes even more scary. This mysterious figure might just be the same person or thing caught in the previous photo. Now it could be that a squatter is hiding inside his apartment, but then again, some viewers think that this supposed person is actually something supernatural. There haven't been any further updates on this story, but until then, you be the judge on what was captured.
He finds his daughter, who was kidnapped 6 months ago, but he realizes he didn't want to find her.
Tolong, ada suster ngepot. Astagfirullahaladzim, dia minta tolong. Astagfirullahaladzim, dia minta tolong. Ada yang minta tolong. Ada yang minta tolong. Ya Allah, tolong, gue harus tolongin. Kayak gimana, gue nggak tahu. Lu siapa, weh? Gua nggak tahu lu siapa, bangke. Hah? Lu siapa, weh? Anjing ngejar gua dong. Astagfirullahaladzim. Astagfirullahaladzim. Innalillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Ya Allah. Anjing bau minyak.
There's a hospital in Toronto that my teacher used to work at. There was a common story because she was working on the floor where people were like on their last hour. And before they would pass away, they would talk about this doctor that visited them. And the doctor would always say, "Oh, it's all right. Like, you'll be calm." And they would talk to like the nurse that was working there, like, "Can I speak to that doctor again? He was like tall, he had like black hair, this and that." And the nurses would be like, "Oh, there's no, like, we have a brown doctor, we have like an Asian doctor. What are you talking about? What doctor are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And then like, "No, like this doctor, he was this and this and this." Now, the theory is he was a doctor that worked there a long time ago. I don't know if you ever watched The Shining. It's a movie.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, and then you know how that spirit of the person, because you worked there, was stuck.
Yeah.
It was like almost stuck, but he was still helping, you know? He had a purpose beyond.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of like guiding them type of thing.
If you have neighbors acting like this, it's time to seek help. The rest of this video is truly terrifying, but before I show it to you, I must warn you. I can only protect my subscribers who have liked and shared this video. This family, whom we'll call the Martins, lived peacefully in a small residential neighborhood. But recently, strange events began to occur at the neighbor's house across the street. Weird noises at night, peculiar movements, and above all, this light constantly flickering in their dining room. Intrigued and worried, the Martins decided to film their neighbors. In this video, you can see the family next door sitting at their dining room table in the darkness, while the light continues to flicker regularly. It's as if they're in a trance, as if they're possessed. Flickering lights are often associated with paranormal activity. The Martins are seriously starting to wonder if they're dealing with something supernatural. I'll let you discover the rest in the video.
My lover broke my heart, so I ate his. When I was alive, I was amazingly beautiful. I could have any man I wanted, but for some reason I was always attracted to the bad boys. That's why I fell for Kyle. He was forbidden fruit since he was already married. We eventually fell in love. He told me that I was the one for him, and that he would leave his wife for me, but he never did. I finally told him that if he wouldn't tell her that I would. This sent Kyle into a rage. He took my life and buried me in the woods behind his house. But I wasn't finished with him. He was mine. I would have his heart. This brought me back from the dead. Late one night, I crawled from my shallow grave and walked into Kyle's backyard. I could see him in the window watching TV. He was the only one home. I started to sing our song. This caught his attention, and he walked into the dark backyard. I'll never forget his face when he saw me. The terror, the fear. I pounced on him and slowly dug my fingers into his chest until my whole hand was inside him. I gripped his heart and pulled it out. I watched his eyes as I ate his heart. Now he is mine forever.
This little baby was born with one black spot, but what the doctors will discovering 1 month later will shock everyone. Little Emma, born in the city of Paris, was abandoned by her parents' biological products shortly after his birth. Little Emma has been abandoned simply because of its task that scared his parents. His parents refused to raise him and have even sometimes called them monsters, of fairground animals and other horrible things. Shortly after, doctors were moved by Emma's story and decided to adopt it. The adoption procedure has not been easy, but everything ended up being fine. Emma was already in charge by his new parents, who took him to one doctor specialized in rare diseases. At first, no one understood what was wrong with the baby, but after many consultations, one doctor discovered what she had and said that little Emma had to be operated on urgently. But what the doctors will discovering after the operation is horrible and you won't believe your eyes. Comment baby for the part 2.
The government built this $500 million pyramid, but why? The structure creepily resembles the Great Pyramids. Strangely, it was shut down the day after its grand opening. Rumor has it that the building is just a front, hiding a secret underground base for the world's elites to control global affairs. Despite numerous reports of strange sounds and activities from the abandoned site, its true purpose remains unknown. The Safeguard complex was originally built as an anti-ballistic missile defense system during the Cold War. Its primary purpose was to detect and intercept incoming missiles to protect the United States from potential nuclear attacks.
Could this be a wizard pretending to be a magician? Scary conspiracy theories. Was Bob Ross a serial killer? What do you think?
I did not see this coming. NASA doesn't want you to know. They have the last dinosaur. Earlier this year in February, Lucas Meyer was hiking the Window Trail in Texas. He loved hiking. However, today he found something incredible. In the early 1980s, NASA created facilities all over the United States. One of these facilities was built near the Window Trail in Texas. It was an observatory, or at least that's what NASA told the public. When Lucas was hiking, he always liked to wander off the trail. While hiking the trail, Miko saw a small hill look to have a great view. The view from the top of the hill was nice. However, something wasn't right. He was standing on a covered metal plate or some sort, almost resembling a hatch. He brushed off the top and sure enough, he was standing on top of a small hatch. The words NASA property stay out was engraved on the hatch. Without much trouble, he managed to pop open the hatch. Below was a ladder leading down at least 100 feet. His curiosity got the best of him and he ventured down and he ventured down. Luckily, he brought a flashlight with him. At the bottom of the ladder was down there for over 10 years. He came to the door and saw it had something written on it. It read, "Carnivore Habitat Restricted Personal Only Door was locked," but he was an experienced locksmith and was able to pick the lock. On the other side of the door was a massive room 300 wide in each direction. There was a fenced walkway around the room. The walkway he was on was at the top of the room. The bottom must have been at least 300 feet below him. Interestingly enough, there were trees in the massive pit below, and the area was lit presumably with ultraviolet light. Suddenly he heard the trees below him wrestling. Was there something down there, he thought? What he saw next nearly gave him a heart attack. The head of T-Rex had emerged from the leaves of the tree. A million thoughts ran through his head.
Harold was my favorite story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2, and the plot twist. So the story goes there were two brothers, Alfred and Thomas, who owned some cows in the valley, but when it got hot in the summer, they would take the cows up to the mountains where it was cooler. Alfred and Thomas began to get bored of their everyday life, just waking up, going to work in the fields, and then going to sleep, so one day they decided to make a doll. They made this really ugly, human-sized doll, and they named it Harold, after a farmer named Harold that they really didn't like. They stuck Harold out in the field like a scarecrow, and when they would get angry or have a bad day, they would take it out on Harold, punching and kicking him. When it rained, they would take him inside to make sure he didn't get ruined, but they would end up just beating him up inside, sometimes even smushing food on his face, and screaming obscenities at him. Well, one day the boys were picking on Harold, and they actually heard Harold grunt. They chalked it up to maybe a mouse got inside Harold when he was out in the fields, and they just left it at that. They stuck him in a corner of their cabin and just left him there, and for days and days he just sat there in the corner. Until one day, Harold got up and walked out of the house. He climbed up onto the roof and started trotting around like a horse. The brothers could hear his footsteps above them, trotting. After doing this for a while, he got off the roof and went and just stood in the field, just standing there. The brothers were terrified, so they took their cows and they decided to go back to the valley and just leave Harold behind. But when they were a little ways down the road, they realized that they left something back at the house. Thomas decided he would go back to the house and Alfred would just wait for him and he would catch up with Alfred eventually. So Thomas headed back to the house and Alfred continued down the road. Once Alfred got to a hill in the road, he looked back at the house in the mountains and he didn't see Thomas, but instead he saw Harold up on the roof, laying out a bloody skin to dry in the sun.
This specific Mano Peluda case is called El Caso de Nash. This guy calls in to the show claiming that he made a blood pact with La Santa Muerte because he wanted to get back together with his girlfriend.
Should have prayed before this, bro.
And that he's being haunted and possessed by a demonic entity. From the comments that I've seen and people who know more about La Santa Muerte, they say that that's not how that works. You can't really make a blood pact with La Santa Muerte. Maybe he made a blood pact with a demonic spirit because that's what demonic spirits do. They try to trick you into thinking there's somebody else. Meanwhile, they're not who they say they are. Not long after he made the blood pact, his girlfriend ended up dying and he didn't know why, and weird shit started happening to him after this whole thing. So he says that he feels like something is inside of him possessing him. His tone of voice changes and he starts speaking in tongue.
That's a sign, bro.
And he says that his abdomen swells up and like he feels like something's moving,
like in the Alien movies.
Exactly like that. And then while he's talking to a priest in that specific call, he ends up getting possessed. There's 3 calls in this whole thing, bro, and you can hear vividly
the demonic voice.
Yeah, bro. I'm telling you right now, it's fucking scary.
Ayúdenme, por favor, ayúdenme.
Hecho Nash, entonces repite, renuncio en el nombre de Jesús, a todo demonio de la Santa Muerte. En el nombre de Jesús, rompo todo pacto.
So I was at the store with my wife today, and I don't know if you guys have ever had one of those moments where you go into like deep thought about everybody around you. But yeah, I had one of those moments today. So I'm just gonna rewind. So again, I was at the store with my wife today, and for whatever reason, I just started really deeply looking at everybody around me. And I'm not just saying just looking at people, but I mean genuinely paying attention to everybody around me. What I mean by that is I was looking at their facial expressions. Did they look happy? Did they look sad? Did they look angry? Were they in a hurry? Were they, Cadillac cruising it? And I mean, while going through all that, I just started going down a really, really deep thought within my brain, where I just started thinking to myself, do these people around me have somebody waiting for them at home? Do they have a loved one? Did they just lose a loved one? And the people that were upset is what could they have gone through today that made them really upset? Do they have somebody waiting for them at home, or are they lonely? Are they depressed? Are they hanging on by a thread? And the happy people, it's I was just happy to see them happy, smiling. The angry people, did something happen that upset them today, or is that just how they are? Or maybe something happened throughout their life that made them this way. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is just love one another. Love everybody. Respect everybody. Treat everybody nicely. because you genuinely don't ever know what somebody's going through on their day-to-day.
Have you heard of Arizona's monster urban legend? In 1903 in Arizona, a prospector named I.W. Stevens was traversing the Mogollon Rim, a geological feature which cuts across the northern half of Arizona. While he was exploring the area, he came face to face with a creature. It was hairy and it stood like a human. The creature got startled by him and ran away into the woods. Then in the 1940s, a group of campers witnessed a creature similar in the area that was on two legs circling the campsite. Then in the 1960s, a group of Boy Scouts in Tonneau Creek described a creature in the distance watching them. But once the boys turned their flashlight to him, he fled. Throughout the decades, more and more sightings would share similar stories, but the mystery of the creature's existence still remains. Do you know the story of Vault 21? After being frozen for a few hundred years, Mr. House was back, and now he wanted to rebuild Las Vegas. He needed all the help he could get, and this included the residents of Vault 21, but most of them enjoyed life in the vault. Now whenever these vault dwellers have disputes, usually they'll settle them by gambling. So they played blackjack with Mr. House, and he actually lost, but he still did it anyway. Most of the vault was filled in with concrete, but because he lost, he still allowed the first floor to remain. This forced the vault dwellers to move out and integrate with the New Vegas society. Today, the vault is also a hotel, with a room full of Vault-Tec memorabilia honoring the memories of the vault.